Good morning. Okay, so we're going to look at the absolute value. If you see these bars with a term inside of it, it wants to know what the absolute value is of that term. So the absolute value of A would be A. Also, if you see the absolute value of a negative term, it's wanting to know the distance from 0 to this term. So the distance would be also A. With the absolute value bars, what you do is you avoid the negativity. Okay, so if it asks you what is the absolute value of 3, that would be 3. Because 3, the distance from 0 is 3. Absolute value of negative 3 would also be 3. If you think of a number line, this being 0, this being 3, and this being negative 3. The distance from 0 to 3, there are 3, say, units. There's 3 numbers to get to 3, and it's also the same distance from 0 to negative 3. So that's why even if you see negative inside of the absolute value, you literally just look at the actual term itself, at the number. So the examples that you'll see are a little bit more than just figuring out what the absolute value is. This one in particular says negative 10 divided by the square root of negative 10. So in order to rewrite this expression without the absolute value bars, what we need to do is notice that in the denominator there are absolute value bars. So we have our negative 10 in the numerator, and the absolute value of negative 10 is just 10. And then this can be simplified further, because if you do 10 divided by 10, you get 1. Signs are different, so it's negative. So this would be the actual answer to that problem. Okay, moving on. Now let's look at some order of operations. So the order of operations are, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And these right here are going to go from left to right. So you do parentheses first, and then exponents, multiplication or division from left to right, whichever you see first, and then addition and subtraction from left to right, whichever one you see first. So for this example, what we have is 25 times 2 minus a 7 squared all over, and then we're going to use brackets. And we have 3 squared, and then we have a negative 4, so it's 2 minus signs. Close your brackets, and then we're going to square that. So whenever you see a problem like this, what you do is you start from the inside and you work your way out. So I'm going to notice in the denominator that I have this right here, which is a negative times a negative, which would equal a positive. So I'm going to rewrite this problem. And what I get is 25 times 2, and then minus 7 squared. In our brackets, we have 3 squared. That would become a plus sign. Signs are the same, so it's positive. Negative times a negative is a positive. We have our 4, close our bracket, and then we're going to square it. It's a lot of rewriting the problem, but if you do it step by step, you can actually avoid making simple mistakes that you do not mean to make. Okay, that was us working from the inside out, because following the order of operations, it says parentheses. These were our parentheses, and we went ahead and did that work right there. Our brackets are also parentheses, but what you want to do first is work in between these brackets and then move on to the next step. So what we have right here, we can evaluate this. We know 3 squared is 9. So we have 25 times 2 minus the 7 squared. 3 squared is going to be 9. And then plus 4, all squared. Going to move up here. We can go ahead and let's finish working with our brackets because those are technically parentheses following the order of operations. We have 25 times 2 minus 7 squared divided by 9 plus 4 is 13. And that's going to be squared. And so using our order of operations, we still haven't completely finished with our parentheses yet. So if you use your calculator and you do 13 squared, you would get 169. So we have 25 times 2 minus 7 squared over 169. Okay, and so if you notice what we did here, we finished using what was in the parentheses, but it was also doing our exponent. So moving on, we see that our 7 is being squared. So 25 times 2 minus 49 over 169. And then what I have up top is multiplication and subtraction. You do multiplication before you do subtraction. So we would have 25 times 2, which is 50, minus 49 over 169. And then doing that subtraction, 50 minus 1, the signs are different, so you subtract, keep the sign of the larger, and we get 169 as our denominator. So that would be your final answer following the order of operations.